Before you start listening, please remember to download the exercise from the link in the description. Practice a little every day, and you'll see your listening skills improve clearly.
You will hear an interview with a 15-year-old girl called Andrea, who plays ice hockey for her national under-16s team.
Welcome, Andrea. You're an expert ice hockey player now, but when did you start playing?
Not until about 3 years ago, actually, so quite recently. I've come a long way quite quickly. I've always loved sport, though, and have played basketball since I was 5 or 6. I gave that up for a while when I got into football about 5 years ago, but started playing again once I'd lost interest in football.
How did you first become interested in playing ice hockey?
My brother's into it, and I used to go to his games. His team wasn't very good, though, so I didn't think of it as something I actually wanted to do. That moment came when there was a professional match on a sports programme I was watching. I knew then I wanted to try it, and fortunately, a couple of friends did too, so we all started playing together.
You sometimes play against boys' teams. How important is that?
Very. There are as many girls playing ice hockey now as there are boys, which is great. Attitudes towards us have always been positive, in my experience. I want to do better against boys somehow, I'm not sure why, which really helps to develop my talents.
How did you feel when you were chosen for the national under-16s team?
I'd been really happy with how I'd been playing for my club and felt I could do just as well at a higher level. There'd been a lot of talk about me being picked, so I kind of knew it was coming. It was great for my parents too. They felt great having a daughter in the national team.
Are the national team matches your favourite games?
Not always, even though some of them are big games and appear on national television. If a game's close because both teams are good, then it's fantastic for the crowd to see, and better to play in because of that. It's far more interesting than scoring loads of goals because we're so much better than the other team.
Any advice for people wanting to start playing ice hockey?
You can spend hours reading books about what you can and can't do, but there's no better way of becoming good than playing. So borrow some skates and a stick if you need to. You can buy your own later and join a team so you can start playing straight away.
Thank you, Andrea.
You will hear an interview with a 15-year-old boy called Callum, who runs a successful book review website for teenagers.
Callum, you have a popular book review website. How did you learn about setting up a website?
I first learned to write computer programs when I was 11. We created instructions in class to control a little robot. My mum works in IT, though, and she showed me how to use similar skills to create my own pages online. There are hundreds of websites about this too, but I found them quite confusing.
Why did you decide to set up a book review website?
I'd seen an article about teenagers not reading enough and was wondering about possible solutions to this. My best friend's into video games and writes reviews for various websites. These sites seem to encourage teenagers to play more games, so I thought it must be possible to do the same with reading. It's nice to see teenagers exchanging opinions about literature rather than video games.
How did you feel when your site first went online?
I was nervous, of course, but I couldn't believe how well it worked. But even when a site looks as good as mine did, you can never be sure that people will like it. And if it ends up not being popular, there is no way you'll achieve what you've set out to do with the site.
You have school, your website, and a social life. What's a typical day like?
You'd think I'd never have a chance to relax, wouldn't you? But it's rarely that busy. I certainly don't have many opportunities to get bored, as everything I do throughout each day is so different. I make a plan each evening for what I want to achieve the next day, which I usually stick to.
What would you like to be doing when you're 18?
Many website designers have ambitions to join one of the huge technology businesses based in the USA. I want to stay close to my family in Canada, though. I've thought about studying computer science. However, I learn better by doing than by studying, so I'd prefer to have my own web design company than go to college.
Tell us about your new website.
I wanted to create something about music. When I looked online, I found very little on how music supports people through difficult times and how sharing stories about this benefits others, so that's what I've done. There are so many sites for uploading your own songs or for finding out how to play guitar or whatever, but I wanted something different.
Thank you, Callum.
You will hear an interview with a man called Mickey Diaz, who is talking about his work as a hairdresser.
Welcome to the careers interview. Today we're talking to Mickey Diaz, who'll tell us what it's like to work as a hairdresser. Mickey, why did you become a hairdresser?
Both my parents were hairdressers and worked with lots of well-known TV stars, but I really expected to do something completely different. It was after college, when I was looking for work, that a friend said I could help in his hairdresser shop. So I did, and I ended up staying.
So, what's a normal working day like?
Busy. I get in early. We decide who's going to do which jobs each day. It's best if we mix things up. Do a few women's cuts, a few men's, some colour. Stopping for a coffee or a rest can be difficult, but I always make time for that. I often stay late to prepare things for the next day too, but that's fine with me.
What's the best part of the job?
I really enjoy exchanging news with the people who come back regularly for haircuts. Sometimes they want a new style and ask me to be creative. I'm not keen on doing that. I prefer to show people pictures of the latest haircuts and get them to choose one instead.
So, is there anything you don't like about your job?
Some hairdressers get upset if customers are rude, but I never let anyone bother me. We have to take health and safety courses, which I find extremely dull, but I know they're necessary. I'm also responsible for training new colleagues at the shop. I prefer cutting hair. I don't mind sharing my knowledge, though.
I see. How does it feel when you've finished a haircut?
It's very important to me to get a haircut right, but when the customer walks out of the door, the hair's already growing back. I know I won't see that exact same cut again, which is a shame. I usually feel there's something I could do better, so I'm always trying to improve, to keep customers satisfied.
Finally, any advice for people who'd like to become hairdressers?
You can study hairdressing at college, but you don't learn as much as you would in a full-time job. People often think hairdressing's badly paid, but the money can actually be quite good with tips added. Never forget that you're only as good as your last haircut. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking they've learned all there is to learn. That's rarely true.
Well, Mickey, thank you so much.
You will hear an interview with a woman called Sally Wainwright, who recently started singing classes.
I'm speaking with Sally Wainwright, who recently started singing classes. What made you decide to do that, Sally?
Well, I'd reached a time in my life when I wanted to do more, to meet new people, to try something different. I'd been to art classes, which were okay, and keep fit, which I hated. Singing classes were something I'd always wanted to try, but never had the confidence to start.
Why was that, do you think?
I always felt uncomfortable singing, even with my family. For example, going on holiday, my husband and children would sing along to the radio, but I never joined in. My mum had a great voice. I loved listening to her singing while she was cooking. I wanted to be able to do the same without feeling silly.
Was it easy to find a class?
Yes, a friend told me about one locally. I was worried I'd have to pass a test of some kind before they let me join, but anybody was welcome, and you didn't need to prove how good your voice was. You just turned up for a practice session with other people. That was the best bit about it. We all sing together, not on our own.
So, how did you feel in that first session?
Well, I was so worried before the session, I nearly turned the car round and went home. People were already there, waiting to start, and one of the organisers turned up. We talked about my reasons for coming along and, well, she gave me the confidence to give it a try. I found a space at the back of the group and just sang with everyone else.
So, has it helped you become more confident?
Absolutely, yes. Being in a group means you can sing without feeling silly. I've never been asked to sing on my own, and I'm not sure how I'd feel if they did ask me. But now I join in with the kids when there's a good song on the radio. It's great to know I've achieved one of the goals I had when I started.
So, would you recommend we all do something similar?
Oh, definitely. It's a great confidence builder. You'll make friends, and it's good for your health. There are supposed to be physical benefits from singing, something to do with increasing the oxygen levels, which makes us feel happier. I'm not sure about all that, but I do know I always go home in a good mood.
You will hear an interview with a man called Tom Walker, who is a personal trainer.
On today's programme, I'm speaking to Tom Walker and finding out about being a personal trainer. Have you always done this, Tom?
Hello. No, actually, it's a long story, but I was injured many years ago, which meant I had to stop a hobby that I loved, cycling. Stop is the wrong word, really. I could cycle, but I could no longer go in for competitions.
So, how did this lead to you becoming a trainer?
Well, the reason for the injury was because I hadn't trained properly for events. I pushed myself too hard and finally injured my ankle very badly. It was a lesson in how not to do a sport, and I decided I wanted a job where I could help other people train and compete safely.
Do you only train cyclists?
No, not at all. I see lots of people who are cyclists, but in order to get enough work, I made the choice that I would try to support anyone. I help quite a lot of runners and people who just want to get fit. People of all ages too. My youngest customer is 16 and my oldest is 73.
Wow. Where do you hold your sessions?
It depends on the weather and what the person prefers. When it's dry and not too hot, I simply meet them in the park and we do our exercises there. It's often cooler than using the gym, and people are able to push themselves for longer and harder before they feel uncomfortable.
And of course, the park is free to use.
It certainly is. Sometimes it's not the right place to go, though. Some customers feel a little shy or embarrassed about doing exercises in public. The sessions are sometimes early in the morning, and you have people walking through the park going to work. So some customers prefer to meet in the gym.
It sounds like a lot of fun. Are you busy?
Definitely. I think people have become more concerned about their health, and there's a growing interest in keeping fit. Some months are busier than others. During the summer, people go away on holiday. But I get a lot of customers before their holiday who want to get into shape for the beach. So this period can also be a good time for business.
Today I'm talking to journalist Amy Ortega about the teenage photographer Ryan Parilla, who turned his hobby into a successful career. Why, Amy, did Ryan post his early pictures on Instagram?
He knew other photographers usually try to have theirs published in magazines, but he hoped that with Instagram he could receive comments from across the world, getting to know people online and perhaps also in real life by traveling overseas. The result is he has become well known internationally, attracting the attention of companies such as Nike, who have since given him work. Ryan has around 100,000 people following him on Instagram, with thousands of likes and comments for every photo.
What does he most like to photograph?
He recently took an amazing photo of birds following a ferry he was on while in Mexico. But Ryan grew up in New York, and what he really loves is getting pictures of his city, its sights, and those who live there. He considers photography an art form because it lets him catch life and ordinary people through his own eyes.
Which does he feel are his best photos?
He's taken great photos from the roof of his 54-story Manhattan building just as the city's waking up. But the ones he's most proud of are those he hadn't intended to take until he suddenly saw something surprising, like a skateboarder flying through the air, and he knew it was the right moment for a picture.
What kind of camera did he begin with?
He's been taking photos since he was 9, and nowadays he chooses from the latest models, but most of his early photos were taken with the camera on his sister's phone. Before that, though, he began with an old one belonging to his dad, which he'd found lying around in the house. By the age of 12, photography was changing his life.
What happened when he was 12?
He started taking photos around New York. At home, his dad noticed Ryan seemed to be on his computer, and he thought Ryan was playing video games, but actually, he was busy teaching himself about photography and looking up information about it.
What advice does Ryan have for other young photographers?
He warns against choosing a particular type of photography just because it's cool, and instead advises them to do whatever brings them pleasure. He also believes that thinking you can't achieve what you want while you're young is a mistake. And Ryan's amazing career shows just how true that is.
You will hear a radio interview with a young magician called Megan.
Today, we're going to talk to a young woman with a very exciting hobby. During the day, she works in an office, but in her spare time, she's a very talented magician. Tell me, Megan, how did you become interested in magic?
Well, my interest in magic began when I was only 5 years old, when I got a magic game as a present. After seeing a magician at a birthday party when I was 8, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. My friends used to call me Magic Megs, and I became a member of a magician's club to learn more.
What did you learn in the club?
Of course, I learnt lots of new tricks, but also I realised that girls didn't do magic because everyone in the class was a boy. I was amazed. I used to practice for hours every day, and I was really proud when I came second in the Young Magician of the Year competition when I was 16. No girl had ever won this competition at the time.
So, do you work as a magician now?
Not often. It's not easy to earn enough money working as a magician, and I do have other interests apart from my work and performing. I studied animal conservation at university, and I work during the day in an office, helping with environmental projects. I can't do many shows because it takes me ages to prepare and practice for each one.
What kind of magic do you do?
Well, I like to combine magic with another of my hobbies, dancing. I've loved this since I was a child as well. Some magicians talk a lot when they're doing magic, but I prefer to do my act with music, and I like wearing fantastic costumes and makeup.
And what does your family think about your magic?
My parents have always supported me, although my mother often used to get bored of seeing the same tricks again and again. That's probably the reason why she decided to put my name down for a magic club to learn something new. But neither of them have ever said I was doing the wrong thing.
So, are you happy with your life now?
Well, I'll worry about the future when it comes. I won't ever give up magic, but I love my job too. There's something magical about nature, perhaps more than any trick I could do. In both cases, I feel I'm doing something good, making people happy when they see me perform and helping protect the world we live in when I'm at work.
You will hear an interview with a young writer called Darren.
Hi, Darren. You are very successful for such a young writer. Can you tell us what got you into writing stories?
Funnily enough, I was never much of a reader, and I certainly didn't read novels. I quite like comics. When I was 13, I got quite ill and spent a long time in hospital. When I was allowed home, I had several months in bed when I couldn't really do much. I was very bored and just started to write. To this day, I don't know why I did it.
And what effect did this have on you at the time?
Well, I was missing seeing my friends and having fun, and generally, I wasn't the happiest of teenagers. I guess writing the book took me to another place in my head where I wasn't worried about being sick and I felt free in a way. I never dreamed that the book would become something that helped me and my family earn money.
So, when did you realise that your book was good enough to send to a publisher, and how did you go about doing that?
I didn't. I never for a second thought the book was any good. I didn't even think anyone would ever read it. It was just for me, a kind of therapy, to give myself something to do. I had no plans whatsoever to be a writer.
So what happened?
Well, I didn't know it at the time, but my family had been reading what I was writing. I think they were very worried about me and thought I was writing a diary about my feelings. My parents showed my elder sister and she sent a copy off to several publishers. The first thing I knew about it was when I got an email from a publishing house saying they wanted to meet me to discuss my story.
Wow! You must have been so excited.
No, I wasn't, because I just thought it was a friend being silly and having some fun. Then the letter came from the publisher offering me a large amount of money, and I realised it was real.
And now 3 years later, how is your life? What are your plans?
Actually, I'm about to have a bit of a break in order to concentrate on my final exams. I want to study literature after school. Then I might write another book, or several books. Who knows? I may have a great career as a writer when I become an adult, or I may do a completely different job.
Darren, I wish you luck in the future.
You will hear an interview with a young pilot called Omar.
Today I have with me Omar, who is already an airline pilot and has just returned from a flight around the world. Omar, when did you first want to fly a plane?
I first went on a plane when I was 2, and I had a lot of toy planes. Then, when I was 10 years old, we moved to just outside London, and our house was underneath the flight path for planes going into London Heathrow Airport. Every day I would watch the planes. It was then that I decided to become an airline pilot.
It must have been very noisy living there. How did your family feel about that?
My mother hated it. After 5 years, we moved to a nice cottage in a small village. I missed my city life, but we were near a small town.
When did you learn to fly?
On my 18th birthday, my father bought me some flying lessons. Then, while I was at university studying literature, I got a part-time job in a pizza restaurant. I used the money I earned to pay for more flying lessons. By the time I finished university, I got my pilot's license.
How did you start your career?
I started flying private helicopters for businessmen. After that, I started work at a big airline where I flew their small passenger planes. 3 years later, I was flying large jet planes around the world.
So why did you decide to fly around the world on your own?
I wanted to see the world on my own, without having friends or my family with me. When I flew around the world, I flew in a small plane, which meant that I could land at small airports, far from the big cities. I was able to learn new things, to meet the local people and enjoy their culture. I was able to see a lot of places in North America, Europe, Africa and Asia, but I didn't manage to visit Australia.
What was the worst moment you had?
I was crossing Africa and there was a big storm and I couldn't fly as the rain was too heavy, so I had to make an emergency landing at a small airport. The next day, the storm had gone. I asked for some fuel for the plane, but they told me they didn't have any. I had to wait 2 weeks before the fuel arrived. I didn't mind. The locals were lovely and I had a great time with them, despite the weather was too cloudy.
Thanks, Omar.
You will hear a radio interview with an environmentalist called Jane.
Good morning, Jane. So today you're going to give us some tips as to how we can all do our bit to protect the environment, aren't you?
That's right, John. There are a lot of reports in the media about how our world is being destroyed and polluted by man. And although this is true, there are certainly many things that we can do to improve this situation. Amongst all the horror stories, we need to concentrate on the positive things that can be done. That way, we can all make sure that the future of the planet is safe.
So what can we all do, Jane?
First of all, we need to be better at recycling. Most of us do a bit of recycling, but we are still throwing away things that can be reused. I think this is because people think it takes time to recycle things properly, but it really doesn't. Once you get into the habit, you start to do it automatically. Did you know it takes a month to create a new way of behaving? That's not just true of being greener, it works for any habit.
Apart from recycling, what else is important?
Well, saving energy in the home is easy to do. For example, why not turn off lights when you are not using a room? Also, don't leave mobiles and laptops charging overnight. You can also be more careful with the amount of water you use by having a shower instead of a bath and by not leaving the tap running when you brush your teeth.
I guess in the end your bills will be cheaper too if you do this.
Exactly. People don't realise how much money they are throwing away by wasting energy on a daily basis. Imagine if you save £1 or £2 every day on energy. That's hundreds of pounds a year. You could spend that on a nice holiday.
But surely it's up to the government to really make a difference to the environment.
The government certainly needs to be more active when it comes to passing laws to protect the planet, but we all need to do our bit. Also, schools and parents must educate their children so that the next generation does better than we have. From my experience, young people are aware of environmental problems, and I think they will be better at saving the planet than we have been.
Jane, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure our listeners will pay attention to what you have said and hopefully will be more responsible in future.
You will hear a radio interview with a personal assistant called Adam.
Adam, you have been a personal assistant to the manager of a large company for several years, haven't you?
Yes, that's right. I've been Sally Jones's personal assistant for nearly 10 years now, and I still love the fact that when I get to work in the morning, I never quite know what is going to happen. Obviously, Sally is very rich and she travels a lot, and I basically organise everything for her.
I imagine you work long hours then and have a lot of late nights.
Yes, but luckily I'm a bit of a night owl and never go to bed before midnight. My time is quite flexible, which means that generally I don't have to be in at a particular time unless there is a meeting first thing in the morning. I'm not at all good at those, but I'll happily miss lunch or work till 10 at night if I need to.
So, tell us, how did you get such an amazing job? Was it something you always planned to do?
Actually, I met Sally at a wedding that I had helped to organise for my old boss. We got chatting and she asked for my phone number. About 3 weeks later, she got in touch and asked me if I'd like to work for her as her personal assistant. The rest, as they say, is history. We've just moved into a new office, actually, which is wonderful. I've got my own space now, but I miss the chatter from the other people in the office. I can see the whole city from my window though, which is amazing. At least I still manage to have a chat with the others when I go to make a cup of coffee in the staff kitchen.
Tell us honestly, what is Sally Jones like to work for?
Obviously I have to work hard, but I like that. But she's not all work and no play, and we have a laugh sometimes. She's very good at making people feel relaxed while at the same time getting the best from them in the workplace.
Finally, Adam, what are your hopes for the future?
You know what? I've just been given a new company car and a pay rise, and I'm doing a job that I love. So to be honest, I just hope that I'm lucky enough to keep doing what I'm doing. I couldn't ask for anything better than that.
Adam, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.